Tiana, Epati, we are so honoured to have you here and your time, but most importantly that you agreed to serve on the panel. Tell me, you get 1,000 requests. Why did you agree to be on the panel for the top diverse board ready directors?
Well, I think it's what you said, May, because I get 1,000 requests for names for boards, all kinds of boards, all up and down the country. So I saw this probably quite selfishly as an opportunity for me to direct people to a wonderfully curated list of board ready, diverse directors and chairs.
Great. And tell me, was there anything surprising about the exercise? I mean, we had over 300 applications. So tell me, what did you learn from the experience?
I learned that there are quite a few people out there who have experience and the right skill set who people don't know about. So I wasn't 100% sure we were going to find that, but we did.
Right.
And then what I was surprised most about was that there's actually an even bigger group of people with potential, real potential to be board ready tomorrow with the right training and the right mentoring. So there's an even greater potential that sits right now today in Aotearoa, New Zealand, for an even bigger pool of diverse governors. And that's, I think that's quite exciting. The potential is more exciting than the ones that we found who are ready to go now.
Oh, I love that. And of course, emerging directors was your invention, if I remember rightly.
Oh, I think it was ours. I think it was, you know, it was the product of a diverse panel.
Fantastic. So talk to me about that diverse panel, because you and I have sat on many panels over time, and tell me what was different about this panel because of the people that were on it. You, Rob, Venner, combination.
I think in many ways, between you, me, Rob and Venner, we probably tick just about every different kind of box, including the diverse thinker. I mean, Rob Campbell is probably one of the most diverse thinking older white men I've ever known. I mean, he's a true champion of change. I've watched Rob from afar, and then I've gotten to know him for years now, and he is the epitome of an active ally. Venner's just, oh gosh, there's just so much that's wonderful about him, a real think outside of the box type of person in so many different ways. And I think what was great is that we didn't always agree.
Yeah.
And that we would often just talk that out together as a group, but we always, in the end, agreed with the way forward. So there was a lot of discussion amongst us, lots of communication, and I think we landed in the right place because of it.
So talk to me about your own journey, because your own journey in governance and leadership had an impact on the way that you approached the top list. Talk to me about that.
So I sort of landed in the Law Society president role through sort of a series of events that were, I never intended originally to end up being a governor. I started out just as a representative in Gisborne, wanting to do something about judicial resourcing, and then, you know, and then the next, and then the next, and then the next. And so in many ways, I kind of was thrust into the presidency, but with very little formal governance training or even experience. And so it was a real baptism by fire, and I had to, I knew what I didn't know. And so I had to get some governance training pretty quickly in my president-elect period and learn as I went. And I suppose you'll know this as we went through this process, that I kept saying, oh, well, I'm that person. I'm the person who would be the emerging one. I'm the person with no formal training or no formal experience on my CV. And so what about the people like me that could end up being quite good? We just need a chance. We just need an opportunity. And so, I don't know, May, I've got 6 months to go. History will tell me whether I was a good governor or not.
Your legacy's big. I talked to a senior member of your staff who said she made the Law Society hot, sexy and full, and we don't want her to go. So I think your legacy is pretty important. You brought the Law Society into the 21st century. and you've introduced a whole different look to the Law Society. So talk to me about that, because that look means that you stand out, but you know, we're in the legal profession, we have to fit in. Similarly on boards, it's important to stand out, make a unique contribution, but fit in. Talk to me about that tension.
Yeah, it's the legal profession also don't like change. And certainly that's what I have brought with me. And I've always been upfront about that. I think timing was critical. When I became president, when I was elected, it was 2018, and it was a pretty tumultuous, what I would call a watershed year for the legal profession in terms of culture.
Yes.
So I came at the right time. I think the legal profession knew it needed to change direction, and they knew that they needed someone who had a plan around that. And I did have a plan for change. But it hasn't been easy, and I think every week I get a letter from a lawyer or a group of lawyers who are not happy with the change. But I think that the positive thing is that no one is debating direction. No one is debating the navigation plan. They're sort of getting grumpy about pace.
I get it.
So it's either we're going too fast or we're going too slow. But in terms of general direction, everyone seems to broadly agree, well, the majority broadly agree that this is the direction we need to go in. So I just focus on that, May. And I don't worry too much about the naysayers or the critics. My father-in-law, who was an incredibly wonderful person, taught me a lot about leadership, and he just said, if people come to the table and all they have is criticism and no solutions, they're not really that worth listening to. That history is not dotted with a whole lot of references to critics. You don't see statues erected for critics. So he said, focus on the solutions, trust your instincts. You know, they've got you this far, trust those, and keep navigating forward. And that's not to say that you don't try and bring people with you, or you broadly consult and get advice. It just means that at a certain point, particularly when you're leading change, you have to trust yourself on it.
So what has all of this taught you about being a great director, about governance, about chairing, about leadership?
Well, diversity matters. It really does. If you want to do something different, if you want to change direction, if you want to modernize, to have something you've never had, you have to do something you've never done. And so to be able to think strategically, problem solve, see risk where others can't, you have to have people who can think outside of the box. And when you think about even just the structure of governance of boards, there is a reason why you have more than one person, right? Isn't there?
Well,
the whole structure is designed for different perspectives and views and lenses. That's the idea. The problem is, or previously the problem has been, that you always have the same kind of people populate those 6 seats or 7 seats or 5 seats. So if you think about the actual idea of a board is to actually have a variety of people bring their perspectives to the table, so you can exchange them and really have an exchange of views and opinions to get to the right solution for a particular company. The very design of it tells you that diversity is what they're after, but we haven't had it because it's the same kind of people, and so you've got groupthink going on, which is not what you want. So I think the board that I currently have, the New Zealand Law Society, is probably one of the most diverse boards the Law Society's ever had in 150 years. It's majority female, 2 women of colour. You've got a person from the rainbow community, and you've got your middle-aged white man who's a wonderful ally for change. So that's what you're seeing by way of output is the product of decision makers who can all bring very, very different perspectives to the table.
Talk to me about some of the younger candidates who applied. Were you surprised that there were so many younger candidates that put their names forward?
No, I see this in the legal profession, that new generation that's coming through, you don't have to convince them that diversity is important or it matters. You also don't have to convince them about putting themselves forward for things like this. I think they're real go-getters. That, you said that idea of having to fit in, May, that's something that you and I have had to experience, that whole, you have to make yourself smaller. You can't talk about race. You can't talk about these things. That's not like that for them, May.
You have to pretend you're not Chinese.
You have to pretend you're not an immigrant. You and I both came here as little girls. We have that immigrant story. You and I, deep down inside, will always be that little girl that came to another country. This new generation.
Don't speak your language, but don't do your cultural thing. Try and be like everybody else. Maybe nobody will notice that you're different.
Yeah, don't be yourself, basically. The new generation are just, I judge moots, and you go to the law schools and these kids are turning up wearing e whaikanga, like cultural dress for their court dates. They're wearing taonga instead of ties. They are bringing their true selves. And so, no, I wasn't surprised that we had these amazing young people, and they're pretty amazing, the ones that are putting themselves forward. So, because I see that in the legal profession. I mean, half the legal profession right now, 50% are millennials, and they get it. They completely get it, and that's cool.
Well, you know that because so many of them also are ethnic. I mean, it's extraordinary. 1 in 10 is Asian. I was astounded when I heard that statistic. So tell me, what difference do you think this is going to make? We've spent a lot of time and a lot of effort. I've eaten up a lot of your evenings and mornings, early mornings. What difference do you think this is going to make?
I think it's going to make a big difference for, I don't think that there's any board in New Zealand right now that doesn't want to have a better diverse makeup at their board level. The business case for diversity is well and truly entrenched. So I think what it's going to do is, well, my hope is that it's going to shift the dial. Because as I say, there are sort of two problems at the moment for people who are diverse. One is being seen, and the other is not being seen. So the ones who are seen tend to get burnt out because they get pulled in every direction on everything. The ones who are not seen don't seem to get that opportunity. So, this list, it has some of the usual superstars that we would all expect to be on a list like this. But I think the most exciting part is that a large majority of this list and the emerging directors list have people who are just simply not known, and they're going to be fabulous.
So why don't you just recount for us the things that you were looking for? So when you were thinking to yourself, who would be great on this list, and who is an emerging director that's on the cusp and needs a bit more mentoring, what were you looking for?
I was looking for some putting the experience to one side, because we had to find people who did have governance experience. I was looking for, particularly in their application and their diversity statement, some originality of thought. And there were just some great little pieces that people wrote, little pieces of prose that really stood out. And so I was looking for, like Venna said, the gold. We were looking for the gold, and we found it.
Great. Well, let me tell you what I see. I saw a lot of people who put their applications forward who would never have done so in the past. And they did it because they saw you as a role model. And previous to this, they would have thought, what's the point? I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to succeed. But they looked at you and thought, well, if she can do it, maybe I can do it. You gave them hope. You inspired them. And I want to thank you for your time. There was no one who was busier. The baby turned up at some of the panel sessions, but I want you to know you always made the time and you gave us priority. I will never forget that, Ms. Epati.
You're welcome, May. You know that if you ask for something, I'm like, yes, it's always a yes.
That's great. Kia ora.